I'm Scott Munekawa here to welcome Eric Shevchenko. Eric, thanks for making it out. He's here to talk to us about his business, Old World Farms, and about what he's doing in the industry, specifically in Detroit, but he's actually really been all over the U.S. So, Eric, I think we're going to just let you roll at first and just kind of talk a little bit about your life.
Awesome. So, roughly about 6 years ago, we started into the farming business up in Northern California. Um, Made the choice to switch it up. I was in a very different style of business prior to this. Had some kind of resemblances. You know, it's always a hustle to start a new business, and my previous business was always a hustle, never ending. Um, so, like I said, 6, 7 years ago, we're up in Northern California, right in the Lake County, Napa Valley area, and starting to learn more about restaurants and the wine business and farming in general. And coming from a farming background out in the Thumb, out in Tuscola County, I made that choice. I called my brother, Chad Coplinger. Chad Coplinger is a well-known tattoo artist. He's traveled the world and has eaten at I swear, I think he's eaten at every single Michelin star restaurant in the world. Very lucky guy. He and I have eaten at a few places. We've done, like, of course, Northern California, Dominique Grand. I went there twice. Meadowwood, French Laundry we've eaten at. Got my rabbits on the menu there a few times. But anyways, back at it. When I did call him, I said, Chad, I'm done. What do we do? He said, raise rabbits. And I've been kicking around the idea for years. Because one, there's a smaller carbon footprint. Two, it's a healthier protein for our bodies to break down. Three, coming from the natural food business, these are the reasons why I got into it and started really focusing on this one creature, this one animal. So as I started breeding rabbits and doing these things, we had a few aha moments and started making our own breed and so on and so forth, changing our feed programs, going into a non-GMO, doing a lot of our own sprouts and grasses and things of that nature. So as we started with 6 rabbits in Lake County, and about 4 months after that, we had quite a few rabbits. As we know, rabbits breed like rabbits. We ended up in the Napa Valley. In the Napa Valley, we ended up just going from restaurant to restaurant, door to door, knocking on the door. This big burly tattooed guy comes in, and I'm a little nervous. I didn't know this industry from Shinola. I was just going for it. I said, fuck it, we're just going to do it. Here I am all of a sudden and walking into like Christopher Costow's kitchen and to Thomas Keller's place there at the French Laundry. And lo and behold, they're all just like me in there. Heavily tattooed, chefs and just very eccentric individuals. Just blew my fucking mind. Like, this is my home. This is where I belong. Now, as much as I would love to be a chef, no, I would not. I don't want that stress, and I like the side of the always having animals around in the animal therapy. But anyways, walking into these places and just my mind being blown, and just the eccentric concepts and the way that they are doing things, and knowing that the way that I was doing things were just as eccentric as they were. Understanding the digestive tract of an animal, understanding utilizing all parts. I mean, shit, we've taken rabbit blood, mixed it with grappa and partied a few times. We've taken rabbit ears and deep fried them and put them on dishes. And that was kind of inspired actually by El Bulli in Spain, because he actually had it on the dish. And we can go from there now to Jose Andreas. There's one time I get a phone call. So doing all these things, I end up working with other animals. It just didn't stop at rabbits. I became very focused on different things. So my second subject, at that same time, we started looking at a pig called the Mangalista. And they're imported from Hungary and Austria. Funny enough, the people that import them, one of them is here now living near Lansing. She's only here 6 months of the year, and she goes back and forth back to Austria. But she helped with some of the imports later down the line. But they're actually woolly like a sheep. There's a red, there's a blonde, and there's one called a swallow belly, which is like black and tan. But they're a true lard breed pig and almost went extinct. And they are related to the Iberian pig from Spain. So they have very specific flavors to these things. So when you get them in the forest and on grasses and finishing on acorns, you got a product unlike anything else. And of course, with my eccentricness and wanting to learn everything, I started learning the science. Not just the science behind rabbits and why I wanted to do rabbits and why it was a healthier protein. I looked at the fats of this pig, and this pig is said to have higher amounts genetically of unsaturated fat than your normal pig you would buy in your grocery market. So it gets almost liquidy at room temperature. It's very soft and it's very healthy for us. They say it's as good as fine olive oil. So now realizing, shit, what did we do to our market systems? What did we do with pork? What did we do with beef? So I'm starting to do all this research and finding new things. And back to the Jose Andreas thing. One of their R&D guys, Josh Wiggum, gave me a call from DC one time and said, Eric, Jose wants 8-year-old dairy cows. I said, Josh, go fuck yourself. I was like, I can't do this. Within 2 weeks, we had dry aged steaks on his plate. And I ended up going to the farmer's market and going to one of the organic milk people. She connected me to a company called Mindful Meats, and they started this lady Claire that ran it, and my friend Cliff was working there, and a few other people. And lo and behold, they were utilizing a product that we don't always utilize. It was looked at as a waste product of the dairy industry at one time. Now they're going that they were one of actually go back. They actually became one of the first non-GMO verified beef company in the United States. From there, they were building their model and doing things. They ended up working with Stanford Hospital, Stanford University, Airbnb, and a few other places. A few of the other tech industries were selling. They were selling meat to you. But back to my story with Jose. He ate it. He said, "This is what we want." Lo and behold, now they're in a restaurant out there in Las Vegas and other places as well. So he has a Bizarre Meats out there in Las Vegas, and they do like a beef tartare. An old dairy cow, I'm going to tell you what, to me, has better flavor. It's aged on the hoof. And using catchphrases like antique beef, aged on the hoof. Those things were important factors because people have a hard time understanding that concept of an old dairy cow. But working with the farmers now, and even working with farmers out here, we'll get to that momentarily, but even the farmers are saying that it's the best ground beef you'll have for taste-wise. So, yeah, sorry, I bounced back and forth there a little bit.
No, that's great. I think,
Yeah.
just a little bit
It's
of your
overwhelming.
story
Yeah,
is,
it's a little overwhelming because there's so many parts and pieces to this that brought me back to Michigan. The main thing that I thought about was I want to learn these things. I want to learn all this stuff because in 93, 94, when I started working in a natural food business, I said, I want to have a farm. And I want to have a farm then. But in 93, 94, Michigan was not even ready for the concepts that we had, or I had in my mind, on how our food system should be. Looking at, large ag companies, looking at the corn people, looking at the sugar beets, looking at these things. I mean, we can look at it today and look at the tariffs and look at the flooding and see what kind of damages it's going to have on us as a society for long term now. I mean, we've got years to hopefully there's ways to fix these problems, which I see that path, but there's years of rebuilding from these little things. It's like what is it? Like, the ripple effect. It's just going to ripple out into society for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to actually
Sorry.
go back
Yeah.
to when you first started the business. I mean, Old World Farms back then, it wasn't really a novel idea. It was a novel idea. It wasn't something that you see very often. I mean, now we have a lot of farm to table restaurants.
Yes.
Did it sound like it was born out of a passion, born out of experience, maybe when you were growing up as well, or
It's kind of from when I was growing up. I mean, we look back into my family and the history and where they came from. I mean, what I grew up eating is what people think is fun to eat today. To me, we would go hunt, fish, forage. My great grandparents worked in the beet fields. As soon as they came over, well, they were very young. I think my great grandmother was 10. She came in from Siberia, and my great grandfather was near Moscow. So he came over at, I think, if I recall right, maybe around 13 or 14, but they instantly went to work with their family. They came here to work. Some families stayed, and it was right before the Bolsheviks came into power. Starvation happened, family members died, so on and so forth. But come back to the farming side of it and entrepreneurship. These people came here with nothing, with pennies in their pocket on a boat, saying, "I'm coming here to work," and that's what they wanted to do. So taking those things and those traditions further for me. We've had a lot of different, there was gaps and generational gaps in my family where nobody farmed, people went to work and did normal stuff, factory life. And my grandfather worked for the military for a very long time. But changing the idea, understanding that where my roots are, where my traditions were, that old world concept of life, and bringing it into a larger side. And seeing that here more in Michigan than I would ever see in California. California is more new, more fast paced, more, as much as we want to say Northern California was a little slower, it still was lacking in that tradition because California was a gold rush state and didn't become a state, it didn't really become populated very heavily as they did here on a faster nature. There's a certain culture and certain things out there that I seen and learned from, but I'm telling you, the Midwest, the East Coast, where it all began in that tradition of just hardworking entrepreneurship and making things from nothing.
Yeah, and I guess maybe fast forwarding a little bit, could you talk through some of the trends that you've seen in the industry over the last 10 years and maybe parts of animals that are even animals like rabbits
Oh
that
yes,
weren't
that's what we're
being
going to come back to. So I've eaten everything. As a child, we would take things like perch eggs and we deep fry them. That was like good for me to eat. Cow tongue sandwiches, liver and onions with my grandmother on a Friday. Like going to a restaurant to get liver and onions. Like those were, just cheap foods almost.
Yeah.
Not to say it like that, but they were for the people that weren't as economically, stable at the time.
So what do you think has flipped? Like what's
I
kind
mean,
of led to that
the
change?
flip is small farms are small farms, and we need to survive in this large economy. So seeing these small farmers, like we'll start looking at the dairy farmers because that's one of my big pet projects right now. And I just got off the phone with one today with some really great news. But we're starting to look at these small dairy farmers. Anybody that has under 500 cows is considered a small dairy farm, and they can barely stay alive. My family's went out of business because of these things that happened in the 80s and 90s, and it's happening again today. So a lot of these guys switched over to organic, not understanding organic, but learning organic to survive in an economy that is ever changing and ever surpassing them. Financially, it's the dairy industry is just such a weird one for me. But seeing that and seeing those changes, it's important to see that chefs want to make things more trendy. Like I talked earlier, we've eaten everything down to the rabbit ears, the rabbit blood. I mean, I've used every single part of the animal. I've taken intestines and washed them out, turned them inside out, soaked them in sesame oil, and cooked them over an open fire, and eat like little crispy rabbit intestines. So, I mean, every part of the animal is edible. I mean, we throw away lungs, but lungs, there's old Italian dishes that are made from lungs. There's old dishes from all over the world made out of cow udders. I knew a guy in the Yucatan, he said his parents, when he grew up, they would deep fry these things. And it was like a treat for these guys because once in a blue moon, you're going to kill your dairy cow. So he said it was like a gelatiny Parmesan cheese thing. But the USDA says not for human consumption. But, there's ways around that.
Gotcha.
Kind of a little more still on the outlaw side of things. So we do sell some things that, and give out some things that are, not really for human consumption. But dang, they're tasty and quite edible.
So talk to us a little bit more about what it's like to kind of support the restaurant industry. I think, all of us on social media and
social media.
I know. Looking at just the restaurant culture that's really emerged. But what's it like to see kind of this boom that's happened
Detroit's
recently?
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like when I came back, actually came back for a funeral. A friend of mine passed away, and I came back to Detroit and cruised around for a minute. And I was kicking around coming back here, and and then we had the fires in Northern California, and that said I'm done. We were 10 miles away from the ones in Santa Rosa, but it blew my mind. And seeing that there wasn't an organized, good enough, seeing what, I mean, it was a clean slate. There's still little farms and stuff out here that are trying. They don't know how to market themselves. Like the call I had today about the dairy cows. He said, we've got all these, we just decided to keep 60 of our steer. And funny you called today because we're just wondering what the hell are we going to do with them? And I says, well, I'm going to do something for you. So not only is it that, it's the restaurant industry is so important, but it's the farmers, the guys that are on the outside. They don't know they don't know how, they're old school out here still. And they don't know the marketing side. They don't know who to go to. They don't know all the rules and regulations, but they know enough to have their product ready to go. So I'm hoping to build a foundation on that, not just on we're done with rabbits. Rabbits has been here and there. That's gone. We're gotten into, I raised poultry.
They've hopped away, so to say.
They hopped away. They're done. They went back down the rabbit hole.
Oh.
They'll come back later, I'm sure. Yeah. I use that pun often, but So no, seeing the restaurant industry change here is quite interesting, and the support that they do have for small farmers. It's amazing to me that Michigan is bringing that full circle. Seeing the produce that's just grown here in Detroit blew my mind, and seeing people actually getting on you know, on looking for other types of produce, not just regular tomatoes, that beefsteak that you get at the store, or like, different lettuces and different sprouts. Like seeing all these companies pop up, but also knowing there wasn't a meat, there are a couple companies out there, Farm Field Tables out there. We work with Marrow. Um, Seeing those kind of companies like butcher shops and distributors come up that are small are important. There is important factors to have the big guys, the Wolverine and the Fair. I forgot the other one that's here, but the large distributors.
So you said a word here that a lot of us at Google really like to hear: marketing. And
Jeez.
you identified a need with a lot of these farmers, maybe living in the upper parts of Michigan.
Yes.
From your experience as someone who's been connected to some of the best, most renowned chefs all over the world, what advice would you give them on how to maybe market their business better?
It's taking that. So I guess it's taking those steps to social media and the hard part for Michigan is distribution. There are only few small distribution companies that will deal with the small farmers, and that has been the most difficult part of it. Two is the processing, getting animals slaughtered. There's only one poultry slaughter place in the whole state, and I do my own on farm because we're able to because we're within a USDA exempt. But having USDA processing facilities that are up to standards, it's a very difficult thing to find. Even California was difficult. We've made some huge mistakes in society for that. But anyways, back to the marketing side of it. It's hard for a farmer, and this is why. A farmer's life is 24/7 and never ends. And this is the difficult thing. Like say, hey, now we got 60 dairy or 60. We say, I'm just want to still use that for example. I got 60 steer. What do I do? What do you do? Do you take pictures of them and post them on Instagram? Yeah, that does help some. We do the farmers markets. Yeah, you're going to sell a little bit, but people want to move volume and people do want to, expand and go further out. And that's kind of why I came home. It's to help that side of marketing, to see those changes happen. The same thing I thought about back in '93 can come into fruition in the next 5 years here. I can make it happen. And looking at, getting help from certain companies like the Small Business Development Center. We actually went through a place called Michigan's Food Funded. So these are other things that are helpful to these guys. We went through Michigan Foods Funded, and they put me. We were looking for, some small amount of startup capital. Still looking forward. We're going to still need a larger amount of startup capital, seeing how things are unfolding. We ended up getting a loan. They sent us over to Michigan Women's Foundation, which is right down the road here. And I got a loan through Michigan Women's Foundation of all things, which was amazing and quite thankful. They've been very helpful and very easy to work with. And, coming from, just starting things up on my own and just winging it through all the walks of life, this was a great blessing and help here because they're doing these things here because we're kind of in a food desert. We're in a food desert surrounded by food. That's the problem. That's some of our issues that we need to start working on. And I'm excited to help these guys market these things.
Can you explain a little bit more what you might mean by food desert from what you've seen? Just that term.
From what I've seen, I know Detroit's changed a lot, Flint's changing, and Saginaw, the three main, industrial towns that we have here up to 75. Saginaw is still got quite a ways to go. I might be donating a greenhouse to them to help, but there's people in this community that aren't economically. There's economical issues due to shutdowns of factories, loss of jobs, and the loss of opportunities. There's certain types of establishments that exist, but there's not, from all those documentaries you watch and hear about, there wasn't much food sources available. You've got your grocery stores, you got stuff being shipped in from California. Majority of our produce is coming from California. That's not okay. To me, that's not okay. I want to see a lesser amount of travel. I'd like to see more greenhouses being utilized, more, farms being utilized, and finding ways to close that gap up so we're not trucking everything in from out of state just to eat.
So Eric, like hypothetically, my partner and I, we have a date on a Friday night tomorrow, 2 days from now. Um, what advice would you give us in terms of being able to find a restaurant that you feel like
I'm
is
sorry. I'm going to just say one thing. You're going to ask where to go eat, right? Is
not
that?
not necessarily specifically, but how would I find uh, a restaurant that I feel like respects the farmer, uses truly sustainable meats and produce?
I mean, it's just looking it up. I mean, just going online and saying, hey, farm to table restaurants in Detroit. I mean, it's kind of what I had to do for my own marketing side of it.
Yeah,
You know,
this thing called Google, I guess.
that thing called Google.
Yeah,
Geez,
it's a
is
good
that where
place
we're
to
at?
start.
Geez.
Okay.
Google it. Farm to table restaurants in Detroit. I mean, that's what I had to do. I did that all over. I mean, everywhere we travel to, I want to know who's getting what or from where. And then you can sometimes even connect to those farms. You can find those farms. You can find those places. And, next month we're doing a farm to table dinner at our place. We're bringing a bunch of chefs together, like I was saying earlier to you guys. And I think that things like this are going to help build that community. California had farm tours, Sonoma County farm tour. We would just go from farm to farm to farm. Bands would be playing, food is being served. You got little petting zoos and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it was pretty rad. I'd like to see more of that stuff kind of arise here.
So tell me about what you're excited about for Old World Farms, your business, yourself personally over the next 5 years. What's your dream? Where would you like to be?
Man, I'd like to see more of a cooperative built. I want to see a cooperative built where we work with these farmers and we all kind of work together. So say, recently I had some issues due to weather and had some animal loss. So when I had that animal loss, I'm shit out of luck. I'm out money for a whole month. So when we start looking at those things, we need to look at ways of making a cooperative. I look at one of the companies we had all our poultry processed in California was Squaw Producers of California, and they do pigeons. That's all they do. And they have thousands and thousands and thousands of pigeons. But they are all different farmers that own the cooperative. And that way they can keep each other going. And without the cooperative side of it here in Michigan, each small farmer that's trying to do these things so hard, they're only going to be able to, their growth is going to end here. When with a cooperative, their growth could, I mean, it's a never ending. It's never ending. I mean, we can start looking at Myers, we can start looking at Kroger's, we can start looking at all these companies that need to follow suit with a lot of the grocery markets that are on the West Coast, East Coast, and other places. Because those companies have found ways to build on those small farms. I remember Whole Foods. I worked for Whole Foods for a few years. I quit working for them due to other reasons. But anyways, to kind of follow my path, we'll say. But I learned a lot at Whole Foods. Whole Foods at that time was just starting. I worked at the second largest Whole Foods in Columbus, Ohio. I was only there a few months. But they were building communities by buying from community farmers. But they finally found out it was easier to find that one community farmer and build him because it was easier to distribute. Now, that one community farmer, well, we'll say for one of the big egg producers, I'm not going to say names or anything, but there's a big egg producer. They ended up investing in them. Now that egg producer has a cooperative of producers for that label. So it's something like that. So we can look at like, okay, Michigan, we can have Michigan meats. We can have Michigan, bringing out Michigan, like all how we are in Michigan. I mean, we have pride for Michigan-based products. We have everything Michigan, 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 but there's nothing under that label yet. We're looking at doing some private labels for some grocery stores and things of this nature in the future. So that building and growth, like I said, it's going to have to be a cooperative under a bigger umbrella. It won't just be beef. It won't just be chicken. It won't just be pork. We could have some produce come through and all this stuff. Kind of a little bit like Cherry Capital Foods-ish, I guess. I mean, they do a lot of distribution, but they're not. They're just based in one area and have a little distribution. I'm talking, further out,
Yeah, that's
because
great.
it's not just Michigan. We got Chicago. I mean, I get calls from Chicago. I still get calls from all over, but yeah. Anyways,
Yeah. No, well, thank you very much for sharing that experience. I want to leave some time for the audience to be able to ask any questions if there are any.
So you talked a lot about different types of meat and different cuts of meat and different ways of processing and utilizing and ultimately eating the different cuts of meat. What would you say is your favorite, maybe non-typical
this is a hard one for
cut
me.
of
Let me tell you what the
meat?
hard thing for me is. I have no favoritisms, and the reason I have nothing under favorites, but is because I want to give everything its own experience. So when we start favoritizing one cut of meat, this is where we come into problems with in the long run. So I want to walk into a grocery store and I always want to have a T-bone steak, right? I always want to have that T-bone steak. How many T-bone steaks and how many cows does it take to have thousands of pounds of T-bone steaks to go out of your store? So my favorite cut of meat is the whole animal.
How about right now? There's trends, it seems like, with meat, and rabbits was the thing for a while.
Yep.
What's something that you enjoy currently, maybe, that you're messing around with?
Geez. That's so difficult. That's a difficult question.
I'd love to try cow tongue, and
Cow
heard
tongue's
you
great.
reference, that
I mean,
you
I
used to
just
eat that
opened
a
up my
lot.
cooler from the pig we just had processed, and there was pig tongue in there, and there's some other things I'll probably play around with at the house. But I mean, I've eaten a lot of lengua in my life afterwards, in burritos out west, but people don't serve it that much here. Pickled corned beef tongue, like pickled like that. That is phenomenal to me. Like those are traditional, solid, like Eastern Europe, Jewish style foods, and those to me are comfort foods because I grew up eating a lot of that stuff. So yeah, like things like that are cow tongue. Cow tongue would be great.
Is there a restaurant in Detroit that you would recommend, maybe more specifically to Scott's question, to try for some different variations?
My favorite place right now, I'll say the place
Right
that I've
now.
been frequenting the most right now, Flowers of Vietnam.
Love that place too.
George is amazing. Blows my mind. I can't wait to open this Mexican place. Ooh, that's exciting. But yeah, sorry.
Tell me a little bit more about that piece, the food industry within Detroit, the restaurant industry. Some restaurants that you're excited about that you feel like maybe they'll be opening in a few years or in a year.
I know that I know there's
Concepts.
a new one coming up, and I've been raising some birds for it, but I don't know if we've dropped the ball because we've had some situations happen in our poultry business right now. But Doug at Chartreuse is in the process of doing something, and I hope that it's coming through. But there's talk of Nordic food coming, and we've raised these chickens right now called Icelandics, and they're the Viking chicken. And they're very different. They're very small. They're very minimal meat on them, but the flavor profile from them is very tradition and old. And that's the same thing with our breeds, other breed of chickens. We've been playing around with some other breeding stock, but understanding these old traditions and understanding why Cornish cross chickens have their place in the market. They're quick, they're 8 weeks, they're to the market. I got birds that take 6 months to get to market. So I got some money wrapped up into them, and it's hard to make a value on that though too. So it's hard to pass that off at, an economical price and not have, not put myself in the hole a little bit. And it's the same with the pigs that we're doing. They're very special. They take 14 months to 18 months. 2 years is even better. But our pigs that go to market now are 8 months old. And I ate a steak the other day, and I said, what the fuck is this thing? It had no taste. Zero. Nothing. I don't understand. Like the area around the bone had that steaky flavor, but it's something in the feed process or something in like genetically just growing animals faster, not having that time to age. Like I was saying earlier, like doing the older cows have so much more flavor because it is aged on the hoof, literally, and that taste comes out in the meat. So
when you're, I guess, answering the
sorry,
question about,
I got sidetracked.
no,
probably.
that's fine. We like letting you run and just
Yeah.
talking. So when you were answering the question a little bit about tongue, and you talked about how you kind of experiment with different cuts of meat or the flavors, what's your approach? Like, do you just take some obscure intestines, for example, and you're like, let me cook it this way with marinating with this
Yeah.
oil and then throw it on the grill?
So those things do happen, like I was saying, we've done the rabbit intestines, I've done pig intestines, I've done all these things. I just made my own Szechuan style like gizzards the other day because I had Szechuan style pork intestines at a Hunan restaurant up in Saginaw, of all places. I was like, wow, this place is very traditional. That's made me very happy, and I kind of got hooked on the Szechuan pepper, that feeling and that numbness in the mouth. But also we look at why they use these flavors, and we look at flavors that mask some flavors that to bring out other flavors. So we start looking at, and I was going to say those traditional old world ways of doing things were done that way to put a balance into these things. It's like pairing wine. You got to pair herbs, and you got to look at, of course, you're cooking with intestines. There's things that were in there, shit, for example, that you got to make sure is cleaned out thoroughly, and you got to know the ways to do those things. And when they're done right and paired with the right flavors, hands down, it's phenomenal. Same with the tongue. The tongue is a very different flavor. I mean, it's not that different, but it's a different flavor and a different texture, and you got to know preparation. I mean, I Google a lot. I Google a lot of recipes and read about these things, and I find ways to do them. I mean, some of it's traditional through family recipes, some of it's traditional through understanding now, learning the culture of food and regional cultures. Like to me, I do have some favorites. One thing I do have a favorite of is North Carolina barbecue. Hands down, that is my favorite. There we go.
Seeing
We got
some
a thumbs
thumbs
up
up
out
in the
there.
audience out here. Yeah.
Vinegar based, that's it. Plain and simple, cuts that fat, everything is good. All that sugar and fat, nah, it's not okay. In my viewpoint, I know some people would like to argue with me about that, but
Great. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Candace had mentioned beef tongue, and actually, when I was a child, my mother cooked us beef tongue and told us it was like meatloaf, and then laughed as we ate it and loved it. I grew up with a mother who was really into different ethnic cuisines, like took us to Indian restaurants as kids. And are there any dishes or food memories from your childhood, your parents, your mother, that are like comforts for you and you still
yes.
think about today?
So there's two things. One would be called what we call padi. I don't know what the hell it means. I've tried to look it up in the Ukrainian language, the Slavic language, the Russian language. I found out that it's not, hold on, kubliak. So kubliak is the closest thing that I found to it. But it was we cooked salmon and sauerkraut, canned salmon, boom, sauerkraut, boom, in a pan, cooked it with some butter, pepper. I put dill in it, of course, now because it's traditional, but never even any dill in it. And we would roll out bread dough real thin, fold it up, butter it, bake that thing in the oven, and cut off squares. So that and a can of Coke for me just brings back memories, memories. And then pelmeni or vareniki, which is basically a pierogi, but the smaller you made them, the better they were. It was like, traditionally women made these things, because it was just, that's the way traditions were back then. And the smaller they were, like the more praised the woman was, men would want to marry that woman because her vareniki were, that perfect size, But anyways, vareniki was like we just did a sausage and beef one, but there's veal, there's chicken. Vareniki is the sweet side of it. So, or sweet or savory side. Meat is pelmeni. But pelmeni was hands down. I'd eat 3 bowls as a kid. And we would fight for the last one in the family. So,
Can we get any of this here in Michigan, or do we have to go up to your farm for it?
we may do a Russian dinner at the farm here in July. I'm thinking about we might do some world food style stuff. I'm really thinking, because I do want people to experience those things. And I have done some chef work, more of cook work, but I'd like to have people experience Eastern European foods because it's something that you don't find many places. I even looked at the Ukrainian Cultural Center here, and I was like, man, it's just steak and potatoes. Where's the traditional food at? I want more. I guess that's my passion, but one of many.
Great. I think I saw another question.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm really intrigued by all of the different breeds of animals that there are. I didn't have any idea that there were Icelandic chickens or these furry pigs. And how do you find out about some of the more obscure breeds and how they taste? Do you travel to the places? Is it talking?
It's just like I said, research, reading, talking to the people that have them. I got a lot of. You go through the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Googles, and I've traveled to different farms to see who has what, and there's a website called Livestock Conservancy, and they're a group that they try to save these animals from going extinct, and they tell you how many are left in each year, and they show what's the population. They show the populations of them, but we look at them traditionally. Like in France, there's the Poulet de Bresse. The Poulet de Bresse, we can't call that here because it's from the Bresse region of France. We call it the American. The American Bresse or blue-footed chicken. Supposedly it's the tastiest chicken in the world. I've raised them. They're good, but there's ways to raise them. 6 months on pasture. They'll take that bird about 14 days before killing it for processing. They'll put it in a cage in a shaded or dark area, and they'll put it with a few birds together, and it'll be dark so they'll relax. The second thing they do is they lacto ferment their grains in goat's milk. And I played around with that with actually water buffalo milk with other birds. And I ended up making chicken foie gras on my little poussin. But anyways, here nor there. there are other birds that I've worked with. There was that one and a giant barzador, which was another French breed. They said was one of the best. I like them a little better than actually the Poletti Bresse. Less meat on them, longer time, but flavor profiles. Like I made schmaltz the other night out of some of their fat, and the fat just was bright yellow and rendered down. And I don't know if you're familiar with schmaltz. It's used in a lot of Eastern European type foods, Jewish as well. But they pour it on everything. It's just liquid chicken fat, kind of like lard in a way, but from the chicken. Or Anyways, was that the end? Was that enough? Or can I talk
Yeah,
about more
I mean,
breeds?
you could probably talk about it for days, I'm sure.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
just
Yeah.
interesting to know, like, okay, you hear about this, and then you really want to find out how does this one actually taste, and how do you actually
That's the
get,
difficult part.
yeah.
Because there's not many people looking at it in that nature either. So these are pet projects of mine. The other side is business. The other side is hobby pet projects. Breeding and doing things to find ways to do stuff. It was like with the rabbits, we went and didn't raise the traditional rabbit. We went and got what they called the giant chinchilla. We got older breeds, Blanc d'Otto, which was out of France, Creme d'Argent. We started crossbreeding. And that's what I was saying. I had an aha moment where all of a sudden I had almost a whole litter come out looking like a wild rabbit. And I kept breeding these and kept getting litters of these and finding out there was darker medallions in their hindquarters. And usually it's all white meat. So bringing out old genetics that's when it just rang to me. It just like called out and said, this is what I need. This is some of the things I need to do. Same with those pigs. Those pigs are unbelievable. They're supposedly the Kobe beef of, they call them the Kobe beef of pork. And it's marbled. I mean, I ate a pork chop the other day and there's this much meat and the fat cap's this thick on it, But man, whew, so good.
Any other questions for Eric? Well,
all right.
Eric, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate your perspective, and best of luck to you in doing
Thank
business
you.
here in Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you.